Hello and welcome to another adventure in Australian literature. But before we start, we have our latest book, The Bonehead Resistance, an Australian author, actually a local Blue Mountains author. And this is available on the Black Cockie Press website, on the Black Cockie Press shop. It's the cheapest place you're going to get it. You get 10% off the price of the book when you buy it from us. So there is that. The other thing that we have to tell you is that we have a new Redbubble shop, and as you can see beside me, we have a very wide range of things on that store. There is Bonehead Resistance merch. So if you're looking for a book inspired, or actually a Black Cockie Press social media inspired present, check us out on the Redbubble store. So I'll put a link to that down below with the other links. So that's the shop stuff out of the way. And now on to our book. Our book this week is Kylie Tennant's The Battlers. So we're back with our Australian women writers. And Kylie Tennant is a mid-20th century Australian writer. We haven't done very many mid-20th century Australian writers, and there is a reason for that. A very good reason for that is a lot of them are not all that worth reading, and a lot of them are very out of print. Now, Kylie Tennant is an exception. Kylie Tennant wrote this in 1941 based on her experiences of travelling the country roads with the people she's writing about during the 1930s. Part of the reason why the mid-20th century Australian book catalogue is so poor is that they were having to be published often by English or American booksellers or publishing houses, and they were being they were trying to appeal to that audience, which is what you can see that really mars the writing of Christina Steed, who we did a few months ago now. We did For Love Alone, and her writing was badly impacted by the fact that she had an American publisher and was having to write for an American audience. Now, Kylie Tennant was writing with an English publisher, but somehow she managed to resist the urge to appeal to an English audience. In fact, she really didn't appeal to an English audience. In the introductory essay that she wrote in the 1960s, she starts it out with, "An English reader wrote of the Battlers. All its people should, of course, be put in a lethal chamber, but somehow by the end of the book, one manages to regard them with sympathy and interest." It is possibly the most chilling thing that you can hear. This is someone writing before 1945, before what was happening in Nazi Germany was known. But that callous indifference to people that are considered expendable for whatever reason is what Kylie Tennant is actively writing against. She is actively writing against that. She is one of the social progressive campaigners, but unlike a lot of the others, she doesn't lecture. Reading this is not like reading The Road to Wigan Pier by George Orwell. It's not like any of George Orwell's writing, although it has a similar sort of idea behind it to highlight the lives of people who are economically left behind. This is taking place during the Great Depression. and the massive economic downturn that's happened across the world. But seems to be, although the depression by the late 30s has officially ended, the economic scarring and the economic downturn has not turned around for everyone. And these are people who are left behind, who have been badly impacted by that, but also badly impacted by the fact that rural life in Australia is constantly affected by the weather. Now, because of its Depression era setting and because of its migratory cast of characters, this book has been also compared to John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath, in which the family are fleeing the Dust Bowl. This is not at all like The Grapes of Wrath. Although it has been compared to it, it is incomparable, really, to anything English or anything American. It is uniquely Australian. So what is it about? Well, the battlers in question are itinerant rural labourers. They are people who have either had a small land holding that they cannot make a living out of during the Depression and are now going searching for work. They are shearers, they are drovers, they are fruit pickers, they are people who through just the poor economic circumstances of the time have been forced onto the road. Some of these people, like Snow, have a family that they've left in one of the little towns. Others have taken, like the Tyrrells, have taken their whole family on the road. There are men who are by themselves, who are single men who have been tramping the road for years, that this is the way that they make their living. There are women on the road, single women, like Miss Pips and the Stray, who has been literally thrown out by her husband. She's only 18. She's spent most of her life in foster care and is incredibly like an incredible little waif, but incredibly tough. This tiny, fierce creature who survives. These are the people of the track. These are the battlers. Because everything in their lives is a battle. Now, the battlers, even though the book is probably incredibly rarely read, in fact, one of the things that I do when I prepare to make these videos is I look up a lot of journal articles, anything academic, especially when it's a book that I'm not hugely familiar with. When I'm really familiar with a book, I probably forego that when it's very well known or it's not a particularly academic book. But one of the interesting things was when I looked up The Battlers and Kylie Tennant, I got crickets. This is a book that has been hard to come by, not necessarily in print all the time, and although the concept of the battlers has come into the public or the cultural lexicon, the actual context from which it has arisen, it's become disconnected from it, and possibly the largest disconnection that has occurred with the concept of the battler and the actual book from which they sprang is John Howard in 1996 with his election campaign calling the aspirational middle class who want to buy a second home battlers. Talk about an insult. The battlers are the itinerant workers. They are distinct from the farmers. The farmers, although life on the land is tough, the farmers are a distinct class of their own. The farmers use the battlers. This really is essentially a year following across a year, or not even a year, 6 months, because it goes from winter through to summer to Christmas. It follows about 6 months in the lives of these battlers on the road. Snow, who we first meet, he has a van, when a horse-drawn, so he has a horse-drawn conveyance. I'm not exactly certain what a van is in 1930s parlance, but he has because it's not a dray, it's something else. He has a horse and something to ride in, and a dog. He's a sheep stealer, he is a shearer, he will do whatever work, and he's on the road. He's left his family, his wife and his sons are back in town, where they have a house, where his wife has a lot of family, and they don't go on the road. He goes on the road and to make money for them. Part of the reason why these people move is because, unlike the, for instance, the book that it gets closestly compared to, with the Grapes of Wrath, unlike the family in the Grapes of Wrath, they're not fleeing somewhere looking for something in particular. They're just drifting. They have to drift from town to town to town to town because they have to make it to the next dole office. Every 2 weeks, they collect their dole payment. Okay, they collect their social security. They collect their money to be able to buy, that they can use, or their token that they can then use to buy food in the shops. Okay, so they are not without government support. That is a feature of Australian society. That Australia is a socialised democracy. There has always been that element of it. It's not just socialised medicine, it's having a welfare system. The welfare system in this case is not necessarily particularly expansively generous and forces these people to continue moving, but the constant movement is not it both has a purpose and is somewhat purposeless. It is constantly moving to get work, but it's constantly moving because if you don't get work, you have to get to the next town to get your dole payment to be able to move on to the next town to get work. You can't settle in a town, so these people have to move. They have to constantly move. Some people get away with it. They have lurks. The Tyrrells have managed to stay in one place for a very long time because Mrs. Tyrrell is almost constantly pregnant, and this town has a hospital, and she does not want to have to give birth on the road, and the police have been casting a blind eye to this, but they're camped down near the river, which floods. The need for movement is what dominates their lives. There are particular places where they know, oh, this is a good spot. We all come to the cherry to pick cherries. We all come to the cannery to make money in summer. So there are certain places where this disparate band of workers will come together and meet. And it's in these meeting places that we meet this part of this disparate band of itinerant workers, the battlers. So we start with Snow, who picks up the stray, intending to leave her at the next town. He doesn't necessarily want to keep going with her. They pick up Miss Pips, who is walking the streets, walking the road, and there is constantly this, well, you can go back to Sydney. You don't have to keep doing this. You can get together the money, get a train, and go back to Sydney. There is the busker, who has deliberately come out from Sydney in the hope of, gathering material, but is also finding himself now somewhat stuck on the road. So these are a really disparate group of people. These four meet together, and it's when Snow is injured by the horse that we then work into the wider community of these travellers, these battlers, because Snow dislikes company. He usually camps away from other people. He holds himself alone, and it's only when he's injured and has to go to the hospital that we actually start to see this wider community of travellers. So then he is rescued by a man called the Apostle. The Apostle, or Mr. Postlethwaite, which is partly how he gains the nickname the Apostle, also because he is now an itinerant preacher. He is traveling in a car, and he has brought his entire family with him. And the Apostle sees it as his mission to bring God to the travelers. He's got into some sort of issue with his church. He had a nervous breakdown. He's been given a payout, and this is how he is now living. Though he is a religious man, the religiosity of these people is pretty low to non-existent. That is another big difference between the Australian book and an American book. American books will often have much stronger and overt religious overtones. To the Australian, to the Battlers, the Apostle is like a bit of a crank and a weirdo, and he's mostly harmless, and he does help in times when people do need help. They're not above asking the Apostle for help, and he is not above asking religious leaders in town for help when Snow is arrested for stealing a sheep. The Apostle, as a religious man, goes to the Catholic priest who has a lot of sway in the town and is able to mitigate the punishment for Snow as a result. So, but religion is seen as more like the Catholic priest. It's something for town people. It's not for the travellers. It's not something they engage in or engage with. The other group that are on the other interesting ideological bent, if you have the religious bent who's seen as like a well-meaning, slightly nutty character, is the Unionists. In particular, Burning Angus and Dodger. Burning Angus is actually more a committed communist than just a unionist. And what they are trying to do is create a unemployed workers' union. They want to create a union among the travellers. And so Snow does get involved in this. Dodger and Burning Angus is Scot. He's obviously called that partly because he's a red-headed Scot, but also because it is burning further. So actually it's quite interesting that the unionism is given far more weight among these people than religion. The adhering to comrade is very important, which actually sort of harks back to a Henry Lawson short story called The Union Buries Its Dead, in which a union member drowns. Nobody knows who he is, but he's a union member, so people turn up to his funeral. This is a very different concept. In the cherry picking, there is problems. People have all come to pick the cherries, but now there is a division because the union has said, there has been a ruling in Sydney that if this group of cherry fruit growers can pay an award wage, then so can this group. And there is division among the battlers between people who don't care what they're paid because they're really good pickers and they will make that money and more, where taking the award wage would actually be a pay cut for them. So the guns and the experienced pickers, and the other pickers who have come to try their luck, people who've come from Sydney, who've walked out to this place, and they're like, oh, well, that might be okay. But also, they're also so desperate, they'll take anything. And then there are the union following bagmen. So people like Snow, Angus, the Dodger, the Tyrrells are all see themselves as union people and will not go against the union's decision. They want to see, if we hold back our labour, what will happen. So that solidarity and community in this world is what holds this world together, this world of itinerant workers. They are spread across everywhere. In New South Wales, they come together and then they spread out again, and they come together and they spread out again. but there is a real sense of community amongst them, because it's them against the others, them against the people who have land and security and jobs and stability. That level of community is also very missing. You don't see George Orwell talking of that level of community in his social commentary. You don't see John Steinbeck talking of that level of community among his characters. You also don't see the prominence of female characters, whether it's Mrs. Tyrrell, whether it's Stray, whether it's Miss Pips. These are dominant, forceful characters who survive on the road, but also survive against these men who are who are very, very tough. These are lone women, or sometimes women with families, but the Stray and Miss Pips are lone women who nevertheless are on the road, and they're not victims. Miss Pips is potentially victimized, but is rescued in one occasion. But even so, none of these women, although they understand that there is danger there, do not see that as sufficient reason to stop and go back to Sydney. So these are, again, these really tough Australian women, not women like you find in Steinbeck, the same sort of things. These are not victims, and they're not passive, and nobody breastfeeds a grown man. I'm just saying. So if you are looking at that, if you're interested in a book that looks at that world of the Depression era rural Australia, it's a book that I didn't come to until very, very recently. I've only just read this because so much of Australian mythology is blokes in the bush. It is the battlers, whatever the battlers happens to mean, disconnected from the original text. Okay, and I personally found that I'm not interested in that. It wasn't something I wanted to go straight to. I would not have appreciated this book until I had a grounding in Australian literature and understood what exactly I was reading. So I think that there is a level of familiarity with Australian books that you do need. I won't say that there's anything you particularly have to read before you get to this. It's not that kind of a thing. But it's probably not the first Australian book you would pick up. It's certainly a book that has survived, even though it's a mid-century novel. For instance, another mid-century novel, even though it was written later than this, but really has that mid-century concept, is My Brother Jack by George Johnson, which I won't be doing because I can't finish the book because David is he's so annoying. I hate him, and he's somewhat autobiographical, which is a problem. So it's like, clearly George Johnson is a pain in the backside and a bit of a prig. And he also trained in journalism. He comes as a journalist, and you can tell his writing is like one brick beside the other. It's very journalistic. It's very prosaic. Kylie Tennant's characters live and breathe on the page. Her writing is very good. It is evocative. You are there. You are in the cold or in the heat. You are with these people, and she has great affection for these people. She's not writing of them like a scientist pulling at an insect with tweezers, examining it for its sociological benefit. She is in there with them, and the fact that she went traveling with people on the road in the 30s to gather material for the book shows. It shows what she understood, that she understood these people. She wasn't willing to cast them off. She doesn't treat them with contempt. They have dignity as characters, as people, as human beings, even though they're poor, even though they're for the most part destitute. even though it's hard to make a little bit of an inroad, to make a little bit of a living. She has great sympathy for them, and it shines through in the book. So if you're interested in either Australian women writing, the idea of the bush and rural Australia, or the idea of the Depression, check out the Battlers. It is well worth a look. And I will see you again later with another adventure in Australian literature. So, bye-bye. If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.